Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
This episode is relating to a very important part of your immune system called T cells. It's an update on COVID-19 and T cells and immunity. And it's very interesting. Indeed, this is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist and I'm the Chief Scientific Officer over here at Invite Health. And even if you have not been exposed to the coronavirus that's going around right now that's so dangerous, you may have some level of immunity to it. And immunologists are trying to decipher what exactly does this mean for us. So note that immunologists have a different understanding of immunity than reporters have. To immunologists, immunity can have different levels, different perceptions. It could be good or bad. To reporters, it's always good. So in some studies, up to 50% of the people in the study are somewhat resistant to the coronavirus, even though they have not been exposed to it. They never had it. So let's have a little clarity on the terms with this infection. The current scary virus is dubbed SARS-CoV-2. It's in the corona family of viruses, which there's many of. Some of them just cause the common cold. Now, the infection it causes is called COVID-19. So just for clarification and simplicity, we'll refer to it as COVID-19 for the rest of this episode. So why do some people have a layer of immunity to COVID-19? What they have encountered is previous infections to less serious coronaviruses. So coronaviruses is a family of viruses. Let's get that straight. And people have caught one or more colds from these less serious coronaviruses. So there's a group of these coronaviruses, for instance, 229E and NL63. So there's four that are very common that frequently cause mild upper respiratory tract infections like the common cold. And in fact, I believe 20% of all common colds are caused by these viruses. So most people get infected with one or more of these viruses at some point in their lives. In a study, lots of people who never had COVID-19 have T cells in their blood that respond to COVID-19. So immunologists call this cross-reactivity. Once a T cell, a type of very important immune cell, it's a whole family of very important immune cells. Once a T cell has been exposed to a virus, they will recognize and attack other similar viruses that are not identical. In this case, a common cold coronavirus triggering a reaction to COVID-19. When we think of immunity, we usually think of the type of immunity triggered by a flu shot. That's in the response to a flu shot, our body makes antibodies. There's a cell in the more educated, more advanced part of the immune system. It's called acquired immunity. There's a cell called a B cell that makes and delivers antibodies. This COVID-19 immunity is different. It is T cell immunity, and it's important. T cells are lymphocytes. They're a type of smart immune cell that are educated in what they must do. Some T cells speed up the formation of antibodies. This could take a week or more. Other T cells directly attach to infections and even cancer cells and kill them. Still other T cells organize the fight against the infection. They organize it and control it, while others restore things to normal after the infection is over. This is important. This is so we don't have persistent inflammation after an infection is gone, because chronic inflammation is no good for our heart and our kidneys, our brain, and other organs and tissues. So more than 90% of us have been exposed to at least one coronavirus that causes the common cold. So some of these T cells that have been trained to attack those milder coronaviruses will recognize COVID-19 and attack it. This also kind of indicates that T cells may mount a quicker defense against COVID-19 to protect us better, and this is what immunologists are trying to decipher. In any event, you want to be well rested and well nourished to fight off infections this season. We may have the perfect storm brewing for maximizing the dangers of viral infections. Now, a perfect storm occurs when various weather fronts collide, so it's a weather term. Various weather fronts collide, like maybe a storm coming down from Canada and a nor'easter coming across the Atlantic and a hurricane coming up from the south. And when these form, they create a very dangerous extreme storm that used to be called a 100-year storm. One of these happened in 1991. Remember that movie, The Perfect Storm, about the sinking of the Andrea Gale? That storm actually created 100-foot waves in the Atlantic. Read the book. It's fantastic. Great book. Now, on the West Coast, why the perfect storm? On the West Coast, we have massive fires. They're layering the atmosphere with toxic tiny particles called fine particulate matter. And when you inhale these particles, it inflames the lungs, but it goes right into the blood. These particles are tiny, they're dissolved into your blood, and they inflame your heart, because the next place they enter is your heart. And then your heart pumps these inflammation-causing particles all over the body. So they're connected with damage to the kidneys, reduced kidney function, even kidney failure in some people, fatty liver, damage to the brain, even the onset of dementia, of course triggering asthma and other conditions throughout the body. So on the West Coast, we have these fires layering the atmosphere with toxic particles. Now, already the incidence of strokes and asthma are skyrocketing in these affected states, like California. Now, that dust cloud has already traveled so far it's reached the East Coast. And if it starts to drop out of the atmosphere, it'll affect the air quality, and inhaling these tiny particles will inflame us. Now, COVID-19 will add to this inflammation. Previously, they called it a cytokine storm. Now they're rethinking it. They think it's something called a bradykinin storm. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it destroys our lungs, our heart, our kidneys. It can damage our brain, damage the lining of our intestines, trigger blood clots, just not a good thing. And of course, it's worse in aging people who've become frail, and it's worse in very obese people. They're pre-inflamed. So on top of this fire and whatever else is going on top of the coronavirus, we're going into the flu and cold season. So one thing you want to do is marshal your immune system defenses, make sure they're in proper working order, make sure they're aimed at the infection rather than us, and you want your T cells to function. So there are absolutely nutrients that can help with this. Now, besides mild exercise, eating your antioxidant vegetables like blueberries and blackberries and broccoli and spinach, getting protein because certain amino acids like threonine are required to make white blood cells, you want zinc. Zinc is required in many ways for immune system activity. So one of these desperately required nutrients is zinc. You need zinc to create your T cells. You need zinc to create all kinds of immune cells. There's a lot of different immune cells that are needed to attack and destroy a virus. In a study of people with HIV, giving them zinc improved the formation of CD4 T helper cells. Now that's important. They guide the immune system, reversing immunological failure by 76% according to the researchers. In a study of elderly people and people in nursing homes, now they're commonly low in zinc. Giving zinc supplements helped. For instance, a randomized placebo-controlled study in people over the age of 65, giving them a zinc supplement of 25 milligrams for 3 months increased blood concentrations of helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells. Cytotoxic T cells are the virus killers. They're the killer T cells. Another trial shows that nursing home residents who received 30 milligrams of zinc a day had improved levels of circulating T cells. Now, in the same study, a lower dose of 5 milligram had no effect. It was 30 milligrams that worked. Interestingly, older people have trouble absorbing zinc from food. They really do need a zinc supplement. Vitamin D. Vitamin D affects many aspects of immunity and resistance to infection and even fighting cancer and surviving cancer. Vitamin D needs to be activated for it to work. Importantly, B cells that make antibodies and the T cells that trigger antibody response can actually convert vitamin D into its active form. Now that shows how important vitamin D is to your immune system. Previously, we thought only the kidneys could activate vitamin D. So typically when a doctor checks your vitamin D level and says, hey, your vitamin D is fine, they're not looking at the active form. It has to be activated, and it's typically activated in the kidneys through a response that's energized by the mineral magnesium. It turns out it's not just the kidneys that can activate vitamin D. Your immune cells can actually metabolize inactive vitamin D and convert it to the active form, showing how extremely important vitamin D is for immune system function. Now, both zinc and vitamin D are needed to activate the immune system, but also to control it so that it attacks the virus and doesn't attack us. Our immune system is extremely powerful, especially the acquired immune system, which is the natural killer cells, the B cells and the T cells, and if they're not steered properly, they can attack us instead of virus. I mean, that's what happens in asthma. That's what happens in autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. So we know this is very dangerous, and it can happen when you have a respiratory tract infection. Also, zinc and vitamin D clearly help prevent that. Whether the damage to our body connected to COVID-19 comes from the cytokine storm, which was previously thought, or according to new evidence, something called a bradykinin storm, each represents out-of-control immune system activity leading to harm, damage to organs and systems, death, and these nutrients help suppress these dangerous immune system malfunctions. That's a real malfunction of the immune system. Vitamin C, really important. Vitamin C is needed for the early parts of the immune system. Chemotaxis is the ability of cells to move towards an infection. The early responders, the dendritic cells, the macrophages, and the neutrophils, especially the neutrophils, require vitamin C for chemotaxis for them to move from point A to point B to attack the coronavirus and prevent it from getting dangerous. But they also require it for respiratory burst, which is the ability of the immune cells to release their arsenal of weapons to kill the virus. So without vitamin C, that's not happening. But when a virus infects our cells, we release interferons. Interferons cause nearby immune cells to increase their antiviral activity. So vitamin C influences the production of interferons, and they also promote the maturation of T cells. If they don't mature, they don't work. And therefore, vitamin C is actively involved with slowing the replication of infectious viruses, including the coronavirus. Melatonin. Melatonin is known as the nighttime hormone. It's a sleep hormone. It's released from the pineal gland, a small gland in sort of the middle of our brain, when it's evening so that we sleep better at night. But melatonin has a lot of other really important, crucial activities. It normalizes blood pressure and body temperature at night when we're sleeping. It keeps the hair in our head, believe it or not. The dormant stage of hair growth requires melatonin, otherwise your hair thins. Melatonin helps control daytime pain. Melatonin is anti-cancer. Melatonin is released by cells in your digestive tract. We never knew this before. In fact, one of the best treatments for GERD, the persistent reflux to persistent heartburn, and indigestion problems and intestinal inflammation is giving melatonin. It works as well as the drugs for treating these problems without the side effects, because melatonin is actually natural to the human body. So we once thought only the brain released melatonin. Now we realize it's released by other parts of the body, including our immune cells. Melatonin is required for the acquired immune system response. That's the more advanced part of the immune system that finally removes all traces of an infection. This is the smart part of the immune system. It learns how to deal with different infections. Its cells are T cells, B cells, and the B cells deliver the antibodies and natural killer cells. In older people, the immune system systematically falters. It's a process known as immunosenescence. Melatonin helps reverse immunosenescence in elderly people. It restores the strength of these immune cells, enhancing the ability to ward off viruses and even cancer. Now, other nutrients are required for immunity. Selenium as a protective antioxidant, vitamin A for healing and repairing barriers to viruses such as your skin and your digestive tract tissues. Natural beta-carotene can be taken instead of vitamin A. Natural vitamin E in small amounts, the amounts you get in a multivitamin to protect cells from dying. Various B complex vitamins are needed to energize immune cells. Probiotic bacteria. Certain strains of probiotic bacteria restore immunity in aging people. About 75% of your immune system comes in contact with your digestive tract. And if you don't have a lot of probiotic bacteria, the immune system never gets trained in how to function. And they're finding that certain strains of probiotic bacteria help reduce infections throughout the body. Vaginal yeast infections, urinary tract infections, inflammation and infections in the breast, but also flu and cold infections. At the same time, they're tamping down inflammation in the heart and in the kidneys and in the lungs, and helping with allergies and food sensitivities, etc. So probiotic bacteria are very important. The ones I focus on, but they're not the only ones: Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus bifidus, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Lactobacillus plantarum, and Bifidobacterium animalis, subspecies lactis, as well as Lactospora genes. They're all important for the immune system. Immune system boosters, that's a different way of looking at it. These things promote immune system activity. So they're not just required on an everyday fashion, they're kind of like more a tonic for the immune system. So a great one is nucleotides. Nucleotides are found in breast milk. And when a mother breastfeeds a baby, the nucleotides give energy for growth, for development, for developing the digestive tract, for developing the immune system. They're adding nucleotides now to formulas for premature infants so that their lungs could grow, etc., so they could develop immune system responses. A lot of data came out of NASA. And NASA is planning on using nucleotides in astronauts, especially, these 3-year-long voyages to Mars and back. There's no ozone layer, so these astronauts are getting exposed to all kinds of radiation that would be filtered out to some degree from reaching planet Earth, and it destroys their immune system. Nucleotides can help them go. There's a bunch of nutrients that will help astronauts more safely get to Mars and back. Resveratrol for their muscle and bones. Algae, blue-green algae like spirulina and chlorella. It's easy to grow. They're full of nourishment. They're great for the immune system. They're great for healing. Nucleotides. Now, another immune system booster is the probiotic bacteria. We already mentioned that. Mushrooms. Mushrooms have beta-glucans, a type of resistant polysaccharide. And these stimulate the immune system to fight infections. Examples of this would be maitake mushroom, which is called the king of the mushrooms, or the dancing mushroom. Dancing mushroom because when Japanese peasants found it, it's very big and they made a lot of money from selling it, so they danced with glee. Shiitake mushroom, reishi mushroom. So there's a number of different mushrooms that have immune-enhancing substance in them. Sambucus nigra, you know it as black elderberry. It has an antiviral effect. It's commonly, they use it so often in Israel to fight viruses. It really does work. Euglena Gracilis. Now that's a different algae. That supplies 1,3 beta-glucans and protein. As I said before, protein is needed to create immune cells. Beta-glucans stimulate immune cells to fight cancers and viruses and bacteria and parasites. What about Echinacea and golden seal? Not impressive. I wouldn't use them. In fact, as far as herbs with allergies, the lion's share of allergies are triggered by Echinacea and golden seal, because they're in the aster family. So if you have an aster allergy, which is quite common, these are 2 herbs you're going to be allergic to. Now, so here's a call to action. Most people need additional zinc. They need additional vitamin C, and especially in the winter, they need vitamin D. 2,000 units of vitamin D a day should do it. About 30 milligrams of zinc, about 500 milligrams of vitamin C should do it. A multivitamin to get your selenium and your natural beta-carotene, or your vitamin A to get your B vitamins. All of these are required for normal immune system function. A good probiotic, especially if it has Bifidobacterium animalis, subspecies lactis, at least 2 billion microorganisms. It should be CFU, colony-forming units, so we know if they're alive and active. You take that every day. Very quickly, it restores immune system function. keep nucleotides, a bottle of nucleotides in your medicine cabinet, and if you start to get sick, take 3 nucleotides twice a day for about 3 days. It marshals the very early response of the immune system, your dendritic cells, your macrophages, and your neutrophils. If they can get in there and get active quickly enough, you can contain the virus and may help prevent it from becoming a little more, dangerous. And melatonin for some people only if they need it. If you don't need it, don't take it, because I don't know if extra melatonin does anything. Thank you for tuning into the Invite Health podcast. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or you could just visit invitehealth.com/podcast. Please subscribe. Please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. And I hope to see you next time on another episode of the Invite Health podcast. And thank you so much for listening.